Hello, listeners, and welcome to Pathfinder, the podcast where we talk to experts to help students explore different majors and discover different paths forward. Today, we're focusing on the major product management at a global scale. We're joined by Mr. Jena, a product leader who has managed large-scale projects at companies like Dell Technologies, Amazon Web Services, and VMware, developing products used by 45 million customers across the Americas, EMEA, and Asia Pacific. Thank you so much for joining us, Mr.
Thank you for having me.
To start off, when I hear the word product management, I think it's pretty vague. So how would you explain product management to a high school student, and how does it combine technology and business?
Yeah, so product management at a very high level is vague. But if you really think from your point of view, like students who are starting out or in college, it's actually nothing different than solving a problem. Now, when you're working on a college project, you're trying to see what is that problem I'm focusing on, even if you're building a very small product for yourself, or even you're trying out a college project. At the core of that, it's still a problem that you're trying to address, right? And then when you take that to a enterprise environment, and then you think that from a large scale customer point of view, that's product management. So when we think about product in commercial spaces, such as whether it's Dell Technologies or whether I'm working on with VMware right now, we work with customers. We try to understand what their problem is, and then we try to address these problems through the solutions that we develop.
Thank you so much for that. May I ask, what kinds of problems do you solve?
Right. So problems, again, it's a very overloaded term, right? So what I do, I started out as a cybersecurity engineer, started working at Cisco Systems in Bay Area, and I worked with a lot of customers in the cybersecurity area. And from there, I switched to becoming a product manager, right? So what kind of problem? And now I focus on mostly the cybersecurity. I focus on ransomware. So if I talk a little bit about what ransomware is, right? So imagine if you are a customer, you are running your production workloads in cloud or your own data center. You are protecting those systems, that infrastructure, from outside hacking or people getting access to your data and system. Ransomware focuses on a particular problem where some malicious actor actually gets access to your data slowly, and then they start encrypting it with a key which they only know. So it has a period, because it cannot happen overnight. It happens over a long period of time, because if you are thinking of large scale systems or a big enterprise, they have terabytes and terabytes of data. So if you get access to that kind of a data system, you don't want to get noticed, because once you get noticed, somebody is going to find a remediation, right? So what do the malicious actors do? They get into your system, they stay dormant for a long period of time, and then when they get an opportunity, they start encrypting your data, and then they hold the key for that data. So once the encryption is complete, they know nobody else can actually get access to the data. They reach out to you saying, okay, I have control on your data. Now, if you want your data back, you want to pay us a ransom. And that's how the name ransomware.
So you essentially prevent any attackers from coming inside
So
your system.
we do two things. We call it detection, and so what that means is, so I talked about how the in a very high level how ransomware works. So somebody gets into your system, and then they stay dormant, and then when they get an opportunity, they start encrypting your data, right? So when you stay dormant, it's very difficult for anybody to actually know you are there. That phase we call detection. So how do you detect somebody's actually there? So our product does two things. We are telling you there is X probability that somebody else has access to your data, or we see some sort of abnormality in your data, so that there is a chance that somebody else is actually accessing it in different ways. So that's the detection part. And like I said, detection is hard. So you may or may not be able to detect it. So what happens in a worst case scenario, you lose your data to the ransomware, right? So that's the recovery portion. So we also develop products that helps customers to actually recover from a ransomware attack. So in a worst case scenario, if your data gets encrypted and somebody is reaching out to you saying for a ransomware, then we help you to recover from that encrypted data so that you don't actually have to go through that struggle of paying somebody to get your data back. So that's the recovery part.
Another thing that I noticed when I was doing a bit of research on you is you've worked on products that operate on a global scale, right?
Mm-hmm.
Especially in cloud and data security. So, what does it feel like knowing that decisions that you're making can impact millions of people?
Yeah, so I work for one of the largest public cloud companies in the world, right? So when you think about things that you're working on can impact millions of customers across the world, there is a sense of responsibility and a sense of thoroughness that you need to go through. Like a minor detail can actually create a lot of, it can impact in a lot of ways. For example, you're not just addressing customers in United States, you're addressing customers in Asia Pacific or Europe. So customers are different, like humans. The way they think about things, the way, the languages, the culture, the kind of applications they run in different ways. I'll give you a simple example, right? So when you think about a smartphone, so you think, okay, what do I do to access a website, right? So you go open up a browser, and then you go to the website, and then there you go, right? So that's a very simple way of looking at how you are actually interacting with the system, how you're interacting with the product. So if you take that concept to a enterprise product such as mine, where we are addressing the very critical ransomware situation, how do you actually interact with that application? So, and then that can vary from one continent to the other one. So when you're designing something like that, you need to make sure that you're addressing all type of users that are going to be using your product. So that's when you think about 45 million customers across the world, it just becomes a lot more challenging.
Do you have any examples of how you did deal with maybe differing personalities from different regions?
Yes. So when we think about a core problem to solve, first thing as a product manager that we do is we talk to customers. We just don't go and ask questions. We try to let them talk about their problem. So, for example, somebody might just say, we are operating in a very rural area where we have a very choppy internet connection. We only get so many minutes or so many hours in a day where we can actually get internet. Then when you are thinking about the product, then you see that, okay, so I'm talking to a customer in the United States who have 24/7 internet access, but then this particular customer says, I have a window where I can only go to internet in that particular time, right? So how do you balance those two different scenarios when you think about, because it's going to be still going to be the same product. Otherwise, you won't be able to scale, right? You cannot create the solution that addresses the same problem in so many different ways. So how do you balance that?
My next question for you is, how do you think AI will change your particular job in the next few years? And do you have anything that excites you about that and anything that concerns you about that?
Yes. So let me talk about the excitement part. So when we talk to customers or when we research a particular market, so for example, the problem and the solution is the fundamental of developing a product, but then there are so many different things around that, like the business side of it. How do you address different markets? So for example, the United States market is different, but if you go to EMEA, the market is very different. The customers are very different. If you go to Asia Pacific, the customers are very different. So when you are validating your hypothesis, you're talking to customers, what we call that as a primary research, because you are getting face time with these people, you're trying to understand the problem. Then there is a secondary research part, because you are trying to figure out, okay, so these are the different problems that are faced by customers from different parts of the world. Now, secondary research, you're trying to figure out more details about it. For example, has anybody actually solved this before? If they have, then how they have solved it. So if you are a business and if there is an existing solution there, then you want to differentiate yourself, because if you're trying to bring something different to the market. In other words, you are also looking at competition. Like, has anybody solved this before? Is there any problem with that? And then how do I actually fill that gap? How do I make my product more appealing than theirs? right? So those kind of research, this it takes time. I have been a product manager for 10 plus years. And if I look back and then for 10 years ago or 5 years ago, we actually used to have a team who would do those research for us. With AI, that has actually become much more easier now because I don't have to actually depend on a particular team. So now with AI and then the tools that are available in the market, it has become tremendously easier for me to actually write certain prompts and then get some data and have a second layer of validation to my hypothesis. So that's how it has actually changed my job. That's how I'm excited about it. And I mean, there is no end to how you can be benefited out of these tools and technologies, right? What concerns me is even though you are relying on these tools to give you extra insight into things, it is also challenging at times because AI is not perfect. These tools are not perfect. And you still need to go in and validate actually, is this the right answer for me?
Yeah, that was great insight into how AI can potentially change future careers. Now I'd like to sort of direct a question towards our listeners who you might know are high schoolers who might potentially be interested in a field like product management and business plus tech career fields. So from your perspective as an expert in this field, what are things high schoolers can do to start exploring tech fields and business fields?
So, for high schoolers or students who are just starting out, I would say stay focused on. I mean, we talked about so many different things like business and different angles to a particular product management as a whole. But to start out, I think what you can do right now is stay focused on the problems that you want to solve. Be ambitious about it because oftentimes what we think is, oh, this is just too difficult, or this is just too challenging. So I think my suggestion would be it could be challenging, it could be too ambitious, but it's still a problem that you can solve. And with technology, with AI, you have a lot more help, a lot more assistance right now to actually address some of these challenges. So that's one. I think technology, we've been thinking about technology in isolation in a lot of ways. But as you see today, technology is everywhere. Even if you think about any facets of life, if you are developing a medical device, or if you're working in the farms, or if you're thinking about something aerospace or energy efficient cars or something. So technology is everywhere. So I think if you are thinking about problems fundamentally, that is something that would help you to actually solve these problems in a large scale or grand scale. So that would be my suggestion.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to take those suggestions into my life as well because I'm pretty interested in those fields. To wrap things up, I have one final question that I ask to all of my guests. If you could have the power to rewind time and you could go back to your high school years, what advice would you give to that person?
If I go back to my high school days, I would say I was very limited in thinking. I was answering in the previous question that don't limit yourself. So no problem is too big for you to solve. And if you focus on it, if you think about it fundamentally, then that would actually help you to clear your confusion and really have a point of view about things and problems in your life and in your career. So don't limit yourself would be my suggestion or advice.
Thank you so much. That's the end of our episode, and I would like to thank you again for joining us today, Mr. Jena, and sharing how product management shapes technology at a global scale. To our listeners, we hope this episode showed that careers aren't just about building software, they're about making decisions that shape how millions of people experience technology. Thank you for tuning in to Pathfinder, and until next time, keep exploring and stay curious. Bye-bye.